everyone, my name is Talia and welcome to Hustle Season. In today's video, I'm giving you 5 reasons to read Like a Love Story by Abdi Nazemian. Please let me convince you. So just really quick, I gotta give a few shout outs. I picked up this book because I saw it on Bickering Book Club's channel, so I will leave them down below. Because they're kind of what I hope to be one day. I just don't have a friend in real life yet who's willing to do it with me. So for now, I watch them. And then also, the format of this video is loosely based off of Olivia's video where she gave you 5 reasons to read Heartless. So also link that down below. Now, with those out of the way, let me give you the 5 reasons that you should go read this amazing book. The first reason is the incredible atmosphere that is created in this book. Now, atmosphere in general is a neglected part of stories, I find, but when it's done really well, it can be super cool and it gives a full vibe and a mood and an aesthetic and all that. If you think of The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, I always remember that even though it was weird that she commented so much on the sense of the room, it really put me in the mood of the place, and I suddenly felt more immersed in the story, if that makes sense. I also know there's that book, The Bear and the Nightingale, or something similar to that, where everybody always says it makes you feel like it's the middle of winter. Anyways, now that I've established that that's important, let me tell you about this one. So this one takes place in the late 80s, and aside from all the side comments about accessories and hair and stuff, I think the biggest thing that tells you you're in the 80s is all of the music and the pop culture references. I listened to this mostly on audiobook, and for the most part I was actually switching between this and this 80s playlist on Spotify, which maybe I'll link down below, because a lot of the songs that were commented on in the book were actually on that playlist, and it was just a whole experience to read about this and then hear the lyrics, but then also hear the songs and try to imagine what's going on through that kid's head. And yeah, it added a layer of fun to the book. If you want a 3D reading experience, then I will leave that playlist down below. So yeah, I absolutely thought that the whole 80s vibe was so cool, and it makes me want to go back and watch films I don't know, 13 Going on 30 or Breakfast at Tiffany's. Nope, that's not the one. What's the 16 Candles, things like that. Anyways, the book is also pitched as an ode to Madonna, and it was really cool to actually learn about her as well, and her influence and whatnot. Obviously, I knew she was an icon, but I wasn't around back then to know firsthand all the cool things that she's done. So if you missed all the VH1 documentaries like I did, then this was a fun way to learn about her too. There were so many cool references throughout the book. The one that I was most proud of for getting was there was one line about the gorgeous ladies of wrestling, which I recognized because I watched the show on Netflix, and who am I? I was so proud of that one. Yeah, I highly recommend it just for the 80s references alone. The second reason that I recommend you read this book is that the characters are incredible. You will want to die for these characters. They are just so well fleshed out, and that means that they come with flaws as well, but that you learn to embrace them. Now in general, I did find the characters to be a bit zany and at times obnoxious, but kind of in a way that makes you think they're straight out of a John Hughes film. So even on that regard, they're still on point with the whole 80s thing. So there's obviously 3 main characters, hopefully you can see that. There's Reza, who is a closeted gay, and then Art, who's comes from old money and is openly gay, and then he also is super into photography. And then Judy is this really badass designer girl who has some self-esteem issues because she's overweight. That does a horrible job of making you want to read it, but they're all incredible characters. And it's not just them, the side characters are really great as well. Like I said, the characters can be flawed, but that doesn't make them less likable. Their interactions are so pure, and just something about them struggling to just kind of fit into this world and get through it, even though the whole world is trying to other them for different reasons. It was just so genuine and so pure, and I love these characters so much, and I really hope that you'll fall in love with them as well. So hopefully that was enough to convince you, but if not, here's my third reason, and that one also kind of ties into characters a little bit, but Reza is Persian. So if you ever wanted more Persian rep in your life, here you have it. I recently read Darius the Great Is Not Okay, which is also about a queer Persian kid, and I didn't even realize that that was such a niche and there was a market for it. But I am on board. I'm super happy. So honestly, publishers, take note, because I think it's a formula that works very well. I think his family moves to Toronto and then to oh, I don't even know what city they're in. And obviously they've left because of the Persian Revolution, which is like why everybody leaves. And one of the things that I liked is that the story doesn't really hinge on the fact that he's Persian. It just adds this nice spicy layer. And if anything, there's references like to Persian culture, or like some talk of the revolution or like what food he's eating, things like that. But it actually doesn't play like a huge role in the story, which like honestly I don't mind. Darius the Great fully explores that, and I thought it was kind of cool. And this one, it's just like this teen who happens to be Persian, but it's not like I don't know, it's not like central to the story, if that makes sense. Which honestly was a nice change of pace for POC characters. My fourth reason is that there is a ton of history also in this book. So I mentioned that the atmosphere is around the 80s and that you'll learn all these pop culture references, which are super cool. But if we're like talking truly history, I think the coolest part was just learning about HIV and AIDS in that time period. So obviously when it first came out, it was called GRID because they thought that it was linked to gay men because they were disproportionately being infected. Anyways, obviously that's not true, and like we've figured stuff out since, but it was just so cool though to see how society was being influenced by all of this, and how society was trying to cope with this like unknown force. And then obviously like heartbreaking to see how gay men were being ostracized because of it. But I don't know, from like a medical point of view, it was just really fascinating that like there's so much political stuff tied into this one disease, and all like the stigma and the discrimination because of it. And then also kind of seeing like how far we've come. So at the time the book's taking place, art wasn't created yet, and there was no medical treatment for AIDS. And so like there's all this stuff about like them trying to find a cure and them trying to find treatments, and it's too expensive, and there's trials being done and all this other stuff. And to think now that a lot of these medications are quite cheap and that HIV is pretty treatable and like you can contain it. We've come so far. Obviously like still a while's a way to go, but, and honestly like just thinking about what that experience would be like to try to navigate whether or not your sexuality is going to kill you, like I don't think anyone deserves to really sit and think about that. Although this is tying into my next point. So the final point, my fifth point for why you should read this, is that I really think it's an exercise in empathy, and that this book will lay the heartbreak on thick, but like in a good way. It's painfully beautiful, and you know, sometimes I think all of us want to feel some type of ways, and I think that's why a lot of us read, is to form this emotional connection. And I think this book will definitely give you the feels if that's what you're looking for. Like I said, it's just navigating everybody's experiences with this like horrible disease and all the social implications that come along with it. And on top of all that, trying to find your identity and dealing with people kind of trying to other you the whole time. Like it was just, there was so much going on, and it was so good. Heartbreaking that anybody ever has to experience this type of stuff, but it was so good. If you like Love, Simon, I will say this is like the cool older sibling of Love, Simon. So if you like Love, Simon, I definitely think you'll like this. Obviously, if you think you'd be sensitive to any of the topics that I talked about, like look up the triggers. There's definitely some for like homophobia. Look into that before you read it, obviously. But if you think you can handle it, I think it's really, really beautifully done, and I really hope you guys read it. And as a bonus point, I listened to it on audiobook, and the narrators were impeccable. There's 3 of them, one for each of the main characters, and I highly recommend the audiobook if you don't actually want to read the physical book. So yeah. There you have it, my 5 reasons. I really hope you pick it up, and if you read it, come talk to me about it, because whew, I have so many feelings about this book, and I have so many feelings about that like time in history, and just like why are we treating the gays like that, you know? It's so sad. So anyways, I'll see you in my next video. Bye!